Hello, my name is Brian Dorrington, and I'm here with the authors of Images of America, Tewksbury. That's Doug Sears and Nancy Reed.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. This is part two, so why don't we start with some brief introductions, just in case people missed part one.
Doug Sears, I'm president of the Tewksbury Historical Society and the incorporator of it a while back.
Hi, thank you for having us again, Brian. It was a pleasure the last time talking with you about the book.
Absolutely.
My name's Nancy Reed. I'm the vice president of the Historical Society and the town historian.
Well, we covered a lot in the first part, and if people miss it, I highly recommend you check it out. Let's start with one of the bigger topics that kind of can interconnect, and that's, we'll start with Miko Kaufman and then some of his works, and then that'll lead us into the Tewksbury State Hospital and the almshouse. So do you want to start by talking about Miko Kaufman and his background?
Well, Miko came to Tewksbury, I forgot when, but it's probably 30 or so years ago or more. Romanian, Jewish, was a prisoner in a work camp during the Second World War for a couple of years. Went to art school there and came over to Tewksbury. With European cities and towns, even public art was a major feature. And what Miko wanted to do here in his new native town of Tewksbury was put some public art around. And he got some sponsoring. The late Eddie Bowley was very Metals there was one of his major sponsors, and he put up in this town and in Lowell pieces of art, the Wamesett Indian, the Helen Keller, Annie Sullivan, down at the Methodist Church. He belonged to the Methodist Church, Touching Souls, and across the street at the fire station, the Muster, Whistler statue in Lowell, Mill Girls in Lowell, and so on. He was extremely concentrated, one of the most concentrated people I'd ever seen. And he had a museum in his basement of things that he'd done, and people would come by and he would show them. And he did the presidential medals of Ford and of the first President Bush, and is a noted medalist, a miniaturist at the Tewksbury Library. You'll see all sorts of pewter sculptures that he made, and he never made any money on these things. He would just put whatever he had he would put into the next into the next project, and a just beautiful life of art. And he and his life partner Elsie Howell, who's now 100 years old and still living in Tewksbury, were great coordinators. And Elsie is sort of the one who would publish, try to let his genius be known. He also had plastic. Lowell is always known as a plastics place, and he would take molten plastic and make fantastical figures out of it. So those are some of my memories of Miko. Was a real fine human being.
You mentioned one of Miko's probably most prominent public displays of art in the town of Tewksbury, at least, and that's the Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller statue. Can you speak a little bit about the relationship between those two and how it sort of connects to the almshouse?
Sure. Ian had come to Tewksbury Hospital from Agawam, Mass. With her young brother. He ended up passing away fairly soon after they arrived. She always had an interest in being educated. She did have partial blindness from infection. And so one time she had found out about the Perkins School in Boston. And one day there was a meeting where they had the Board of Overseers come in, and Mr. Sanborn, who was on that board and also had a working relationship with the Perkins School, and she knew that, was there, and she begged him to take her out and give me an education at the Perkins School. And that ended up happening. And at the same time, we had Miss Helen Keller down in Alabama, deaf and dumb, parents struggling at the time, right after the Civil War here, to find help for her. And through some various connections, they end up in a connection with the Perkins School, and then Annie is assigned to be her teacher. And they worked for many, many months to get the hand signals related to the item. And so the statue represents the spelling of water as the water from the pump is coming over Helen's hand. And that was when Helen realized that, oh, you're spelling words to me. And so she was a very quick learner, and she learned many, hundreds of words and this and that. And so that's a whole other story.
Oh, you could do a whole story on that.
Yeah. Let me just mention the connection. Dr. Howe at the Perkins School, who's the brother of Julia Ward Howe of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, had a friend in Washington whose wife was deaf, and he was experimenting with sound, and that friend was a guy named Alexander Graham Bell, as we all know, did a lot of things with sound. And he was written by Colonel Keller, Captain Keller, down in Tuscumbia, Alabama, about the problem that Nancy just described in the family. And so he was the one who put this all together. And interesting that Helen is graduated from Radcliffe College in 1900, and that it's great that she is memorialized here with Annie Sullivan in this sculpture, which is at the town hall, which all can see when we go there.
Yeah, it's a great story, and now that could lead us into another story that we could do a whole series on, and that's the Almshouse, how it became the state hospital. Can we talk a little bit about the history of how the Almshouse started, the purpose, and then sort of how it evolved throughout the years?
So it was really, it started as the almshouse and not really a hospital. In 1852, the state decided to assign 3 spots in the state to help with poor people, and they were mostly immigrants.
Mostly Irish from Boston.
Right.
And they could, because they saw this was a huge need. And 1854, they opened Tewksbury, and it was made, I think it was built for about 500 people, but it wasn't long after that. They actually had like 2,000 people in there. And basically it was, a self-sufficient farm. And so the people that were there would work the farm and work the laundry and work the kitchen and work the heating systems. And, they were an integral part of the whole daily life. And so they weren't just sitting there, like, oh, I'm here now, I have nothing to do. So, it was both for, they call it like almost like a therapy. You're better off busy, obviously. And then if they got a trade going, they could leave, get a job or whatever.
Yeah. They also had a nursing school there where folks who were there could be trained to be LPNs and then work at the hospital, giving young women, as all young women, a job and a career.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a real self-sufficient, as Nancy said, entity, much larger than the population of the town of Tewksbury for many, many years.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating story, and there's so much more to get into. If anybody would like to see a full episode on that, let's hear from you. Email us, because if there's, I think it should be, if we could get you back for that, that would be fantastic. Let's try to touch on some other things that occur in the book. Let's take a switch now and talk about something I had never heard about. And that's the 1918 fire that burned down, I believe, Town Hall and Congregational Church?
Correct. Yeah, so 1918, I think it was in October. One, they call it, tragic morning. They believe the fire started somewhere in between the church and the town hall. The town hall used to be right next to the church, which on the left side as you look at the church. And unfortunately, the way they had things built, there was no sprinkler systems or anything. Before the fire people could get there, it was gone. Everything was gone in both buildings. They even had horse stables in the back. Everything just kind of burned down. So there was a rejuvenation, on both sides of the town and the church to get both of these redone. The Congregational Church, I believe, was 1922. They built they finished theirs, and we did ours in 1920. It was the town hall that we have today.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The very first town hall was actually across East Street from the church. So they were looking at each other, basically.
Yeah, and there's
And
some
that
great
one
pictures
also-
in the book that sort of show that distance, I believe, show how close
I
they
forget
are.
how, I don't think we have an actual picture, but that one burned as well. And then they made the new one, which was next to it.
Okay, yeah.
And then,
Like I said, there's so much more to the book, and the pictures tell the stories. They really do. So let's just touch on some more interesting topics. I mean, there's so many here. We're not going to be able to cover them all. That's why I say everybody should check out the book. But John and George Gale really stood out. Can we talk a little bit about them?
sure. So we had George Gale come up and came up through some research. He, in 1945, appears in the St. William's Church newsletter that they dedicated to the police force of Tewksbury. I have a little copy of it here. And it shows our entire police force, which was a chief and a half a dozen officers. And in 1945, we have Mr. George Gale, who, if you can't tell, he was a black man. And we knew that his father had come to Tewksbury right after the Civil War, and from Virginia, and his father, John, had also served in the Civil War in the Colored Union Army. I subsequently had done some other research and found two things. One was that he ended up living at the home of Frank Farmer on Lee Street as a laborer. He's listed in the census. And he came by himself. He did have in Virginia a wife and 3 other children. And he came, and I thought, how did he come from Virginia up to Tewksbury? And
Yeah, it's a strange sort of travel arrangement for that time.
So I said, I kind of, I couldn't figure it out. So we had another project going on, which was the study of a historic district, which is Lee Street in the town. And we were going over a home 2 doors down, which was owned at the time by a Spalding, because a couple of different Spaldings lived around there, because the Spalding was the first pastor. He lives on East Street, right on the corner, near the corner of Lee Street. And so we have this another generation of a Spalding living down the street. And in the write-up for this property, it says that he was from the Civil War, a commander of the Colored Army in Virginia.
Wow.
And I said, well, that connects with John living 2 doors down at the Frank Farmer home. And so I dug in and found exactly what fort. There's amazing records online. So the Civil War, they have records of where everybody has their little slip of paper. And John Gale is at, I believe it was Fort Monroe in Virginia, and that's the exact place that the Spalding person had been the commander. And I know anecdotally that this was something that happened, that colored people admired the white leadership and were appreciative, and then they became, comrades, and ended up moving to where this commander lived, which is exactly what happened. He subsequently went back, got his wife and 3 kids, came back to Tewksbury, had 2 more. One of them is George. And he had another son, Ernest, and they both served in the First World War. So that, you have a legacy there, one very small legacy that shows a path in Tewksbury of service to town, service to country. It's, I think it's astounding. He was the head of the youth athletic club. They founded that. He was the first treasurer. He was involved in youth sports, always cheering on for the kids and whatnot. So,
and you might have mentioned this, and he was the first black police officer.
He was in
Tewksbury,
1945.
Right? In 1945. That seems really early for
quite a thing to have. You only have 6, and one's a black person. I think that shows his character.
I'm going to put you both on the spot. I don't think I told you I'm going to ask this question. Do you have any favorite pictures? I'll go first if you need to think. Mine, I don't know why, but I really enjoyed the 1940s picture of Town Hall. Maybe because I stare at it all the time, filming those meetings, but just to see how much it changed, but how little it changed. And it's just those sort of everyday snapshot pictures that I think are fascinating. I think people are going to, feel a connection to some of them, and a lot of it's going to be personal, historical, and I'm just wondering if any stick out to you as a favorite picture that you might have.
Well, I am partial to the 2 pictures about Miko Kaufman there, as he was a good friend, and they show he's working on the medal for presidential medal for President Gerald Ford. And the picture of him working on the Wamaset statue. Yes, that's a great really. They show his attention to detail, his concentration, and his accomplishment. I like that.
Good choice.
It's a tough one for me, to be honest. I will say I am partial to the cover picture.
Oh, another great one.
Which I find inspiring, and it just encapsulated the feeling in the town, I think, in 1934. They was so patriotic and just so proud of the town, the country, everything. It just showed through at the time. And to see the smiling faces and the teacher there, and it just to me encapsulates so much. My other picture, which is probably not so maybe impactful as others, was the picture of Brown's Tavern with the little horse and buggy.
Oh, sure.
And then the picture is taken from the porch of like Fairgreaves store, say, which was right across the street from there. And you can see the AT&T bell system little sign hanging down from the porch in the corner of the picture. They happened to catch that. And what I like about that is that it just shows so much peacefulness of the time and just the calmness of that area, where I look at it now and it's just this mass of cars going all over the place, and to just see one horse and buggy on a dirt road, and the AT&T sign, which, you know, that was just coming in. We were just getting the phone. You know, I think you had to actually go down there to make your call, you know. And the sign itself, actually, this is, you know, aside. Online, they have, you know, what is the sign that you see? You can, and it will give you the time frame that it came from. And so, for a picture, it offers you so much that you can place it in time, place it in location, and it's like a very relaxing scene.
Yeah, it's a contrast, and you see an evolution.
And so that was in terms of a picture, and a picture for a book, and a picture for someone that studies history to look at. I thought it was just very timely.
Yeah, those are all great choices, and I'm getting the 5-minute mark. So why don't we briefly go over what the future is for the Historical Society and the study of history of Tewksbury in Tewksbury.
Nancy is a perfect example of the future of the Tewksbury Historical Society. You've heard just now how, in talking about the Gale and Spalding families, how she saw something on the internet or in a book and then explored and explored and explored. Just personally, doing this because she was interested. This is exactly what we are trying to get other residents to do. And everyone has his or her own story, or maybe in pursuing their story, they see a side story that's worth pursuing. And going out like scouts into history and then coming back to the society with what you have found. That is the educational value that I see in what we're doing. And if we can get more people just in your own ways, whether you join the society or not, we'd love to have you join the society, of course. And it's easy to do. We've got Post Office Box 522 here in town. I'm at my phone number 978-376-7390. You can call me up. We are always looking for people who are interested. We have speakers at the library from time to time. We have board of directors meetings. Sometimes we've even had field trips. And it's all what you make of it. It's an opportunity. You can't force people to get involved in an opportunity. But if you're interested and if you have something in mind, I'm perfectly happy to talk with you as Nancy is, as any of our society members are, anytime.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's a website, and we have that running at the bottom of the screen right now. So anybody who's interested, you just go to this link. You'll find more about the Tewksbury Historical Society. And that's all the time we have. Do we only scratch the surface of what's in this book? There's so much more. I highly suggest everybody take a look at it, hold it in your hands, seeing the pictures and just how you both connected it and told a coherent, clean story is very impressive.
You can get it online, or you can get it from us, or you can go to Barnes & Noble and some of the other stores.
I saw that. That's amazing.
Have that available as well. Part of a series, Arcadia Books.
Well, thanks again to Doug and Nancy. And once again, the book is Images of America, Tewksbury. Thanks a lot, Tewksbury.